Well, yeah, I'll start again. I'm Callum. I'm one of the senior success managers here at Spectre, and this is Lee of David Lee. Introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I've run my business here at David Lee for 17 years. We run a sort of a multi-branch, multifaceted business in both sales, lettings, land, and new homes. We're based here, my head office here is in the Hertfordshire and Essex border, but we've got agents all over the country, up into the Midlands, out into East Anglia, down into London, and all the way down to Southampton at the moment. So our business is quite far spread, so we get quite a good insight into different areas of the market and different locations through our associate agents that are out there in the market right now.
Yeah, it's been growing quite quickly recently, hasn't it, as well? The associate model especially.
Yeah. So we only entered that space right through the thick of COVID. So in July 2020, we started our associate program, which is our sort of self-employed agency model. And since then, the model's grown really well. And it was a new venture for us. It was one that we've been preparing for a number of years. But the rollout of that has been really interesting to see, and partnered with some fantastic agents over the country as we've been building that out and continue to do so.
Yeah, there's a lot of support from you guys, isn't there, for the associate agents? It's really, really great to see as a supplier. You know, the amount of sort of training and kind of not saying hand holding, but that kind of getting them on their feet and making sure that they hit the ground running. Really,
it's one of the biggest parts of it, and probably one of the biggest sort of hurdles to overcome when you're starting on your own or starting in any business, is to get those first instructions under your belt. So we put a suite of tools behind them, and Spectre is one of them, as we really value the sort of the ability that gives you to contact your local market and talk to those on-market properties as well as the off-market ones, and help them build a database and start to build some traction in the properties that they have for sale. So we see it as an important part, and which is why we pay for it for our agents.
Yeah, and the usage on your side with your agents is brilliant. You know, they take to it really, really well. Funnily enough, when we were catching up the other day, we noticed, didn't we, that you've been with us since 2018. Do you want to maybe give you a bit of an overview as to how you found things? Because originally you came on with just the head office, and then as you started to grow that associate model, it kind of started to grow at a decent rate of knots, really.
So we used Spectre for probably nearly 2 years by the time we started our self-employed model. So as an office, we had used it across our sort of 3 branches that we had at the time, and we were actively using the letters, the trigger letters, and obviously you've changed those over the years. And as the business has developed, we've been sort of first to the front of the queue, really, to try the new product. So we tried Hello again very early on, which has now become anniversaries within the system, and we saw real value in it. So when we were starting the self-employed model, it was a necessity to the toolkit for us, to make sure that they had that available to them.
Yeah, and you know, I know, as I mentioned before, you do a lot of training with your associates and things. Are there any sort of go-to parts of Spectre that you really kind of are always the forefront? You know, you need to make sure you kind of hit in this.
So in our sort of first stage in our sort of daily running business, we focus on sort of the pain point letters. So the pain point trigger letters for us are withdrawn stock, price reductions, and we use the vault as well. So as well as fall throughs, we use the vault section of Spectre, which goes through the historic withdrawals. So 3 months, 9 months, 12 months, up to 24 months. And they're some of the most successful letters that we use and we send out through the system. But we also really like the off-market approach using the 2020s. So we jumped on the back of adding the Insights QR code to our 2020s, as I felt it was quite a nice way and something we've been looking for some time, but a nice way of bringing the offline client online. And and allowing them to use the insights piece. So I don't know if everybody knows about that, but it might be worth you just sort of re-clarifying what that does in the 2020 section. But we're religious with 2020s. We send them on for every opportunity, basically.
Yeah, you send a fair few postcards, to say the least. So anyone for Insights who doesn't know what that is our new property reports platform, access to millions of property across the UK. But the best thing about Insights is it's basically we've got a link where we can connect it up to Spectre. Then when you send that 2020 postcard, Spectre will go to Insights, generate a property report, put a QR code in it, and it'll basically make sure that you can start that sort of lead capture journey. Good thing for everyone, it's completely free of charge. So the two different versions, there's a basic and a pro. But yeah, obviously if you're a Spectre client, you get access to the pro, no extra charge there at all. Yeah, if anyone wants to take a look at that, please feel free to get in touch.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool way in which it was easily personalised as well. So the report itself, you were able to put in quite a lot to make it quite personal to your company. And I think the reports look really nice, how they're pulled together, quite similar to a Spectre report or something like that, or a best price guide with all the different information around it. But I think it's quite a good point for people to be able to find that bit more information out about a property if they've seen the board, or maybe they haven't seen the board and there wasn't a board, but it might be that sort of nosy neighbour point. And it has a prompt through the report itself for a client to raise a report on their own home, which we're starting to see come through a little bit more now, and people are actually being a bit more open to putting their own postcode in and trying it on their own house and getting that information. And of course, then you get that trigger that somebody at 11 Acacia Avenue has actually used the report as well. So you kind of know how successful some of those postcards are being for you.
Yeah, it is really good to sort of see the sort of tracking on those as well. You can see how many sort of people have scanned them, all that sort of stuff, really. I know that you were kind of one of my sort of first guinea pigs, really, that kind of took on the Insights, because I think when we put all the way back in November, and yeah, we've recently rolled it out across the associate model. Have you had anything back from guys on the ground seeing how things are?
Yeah, I think they really like it. Obviously, there wasn't much more to do in terms of a user's perspective to make sure that the QR code appeared on the card itself. Obviously, it pulls through the photograph, which makes life a little bit easier, rather than necessarily having to upload it separately. Sometimes it is best to upload it separately, and you have the ability to move the QR code around as well. So just to make sure it fits within the photograph that you've got, that sits on the front of that postcard before it goes out. But no, feedback so far, mate, has been that it is a natural step for them. It's been easy to use, and I think, I mean, I know you shared a stat with me around the instructions that we've received over the time in using Spectre as a system. But since we started back in 2018, over 70% of our instructions had received the 2020 card. So not to say that it was the absolute thing that brought us the business, but it's definitely part of the marketing mix for us, and part of that awareness that we've got.
Yeah, that's it. It just goes back to that social proof. It's the most powerful sort of message you can get out of a vendor. And the beautiful thing about the sort of 2020 feature is that you're going to be dealing with off-market and on-market stock by using the same letter, really. So yeah, it just goes back to that sort of social proof, and with the QR codes on there now, kind of adding more value to those for the people that are receiving them, really. I know we kind of segued a bit into sort of Insights there, but I was just looking at my notes here, which kind of I thought it was quite good when you were talking about the pain points we were talking about before. And yeah, it was really good to see that the first ever instruction you got through Spectre received a fall through letter the day after you started sending letters, and then instructed you the following month. And I think it just goes to show that, you know, those pain points really, there's such a key time for you to be sort of reaching out to people, where they're on off market.
It is trying to get the timing right, and that, yeah, it is trying to find that right time to approach somebody. I took quite a bit of time in structuring that fall through letter to make sure that it wasn't it was received in the right way. It was a nicely pulled together letter, understanding that it might not have been their fault. There might have been something else at hand, and how we could help them. So we did take quite a bit of time in the content production of that letter to make sure it sounded right and was inviting enough to ask for that opportunity to help them if they weren't necessarily happy with how it had come to a full through position so far. But we found that those pain point letters at the moment have been far more effective than the general new instruction letter, week 2, week 4, because at the moment, and I'm sure everybody can reflect upon that, over the past year, stuff has been walking itself out the door. So it's only really that when there is a pain point or a trigger that causes them to have a rethink, when it sort of opens the door for an opportunity. So yeah, some of those letters we've pulled back on, and we've just focused on what we call the pain point letters.
Yeah.
And the 2020s.
Yeah, and it's one of those things why that's one of the reasons why you've always got to keep refreshing your marketing plan. And I know that we had a chat like a month ago now, just in regards to what the kind of strategy is. Had a chat with some of the associates on the call as well, and how are you kind of it might be worthwhile us sort of having a bit of a chat around how you are looking to use Spectre to try and leverage that off-market side of it, because as you know, everything that's kind of on the market at the moment generally is shifting quite quickly. And then the ones that obviously, there is some low hanging fruit out there at say, 12 weeks looking around and going, why haven't I sold? But it is kind of that sort of off market side of Spectre that's kind of helping drive stuff at the moment. I think it'd be quite good.
Yeah, so in-house strategy-wise, we've switched off a few of the letters. So in order to sort of maximise the budget that we kind of allocate on a monthly basis, we've switched off some of those new instructions. I think our first letter that goes out now is week 14. So we're approaching people far later in the process, because the reality is that they have sat on the market a little while, and there is obviously something that's not quite clicking for them to get the sort of activity that they would want, I'm sure. So for us, strategy-wise, pain points, 2020s religiously, and sort of reviewing probably every 6 months the content on those letters. Some of the things that we've added is some client reviews and testimonials to the design of those letters, but different ones for different letters, to make sure that people are getting a bit of that sort of social proof and some other people's experiences of the business and what we've done, to try and make the most of that opportunity when they've opened the letter. What are they looking at? Does it look nice? Is it boring? Is it short, templated, like stuff that they're expecting, or has it got a bit more to it? Is there a bit more thought gone into that content? So I'd encourage everybody to just relook at the content probably every 6 months and make sure it's relevant. So just for example, so looking back probably 2 years when at the beginning of COVID, we were making sure that we were talking about being COVID safe and just little stuff like that actually the message did need to change at that time. So we did, and we made sure that we made those amendments, and we will now continue to do that every 6 months to make sure that the messages that we're putting out there are right for the market and the market conditions.
Well, you do want to make sure you're not talking about the stamp duty deadline at this point in time, do you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the good days on that are gone, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I know that to be fair, I was just thinking of when we rolled Spectre out across all the associates. You sent me that file of 100 different letterheads because it was all specific for each individual associate. I think it was such a nice touch that you've got reviews specifically about them that are on their letters, and every single letter that goes out is completely different. I think it's such a great way to make sure that people aren't getting bored, really.
Yeah, it is. I think it's important. I do think it's important, and that's why encourage anybody to look at that and try and make the most of that letter. You got an A4. You got an A4 piece of space. Just make sure you're maximising that if somebody's opened it and got it in front of the right person.
Yeah, you don't want loads of white space. I know we spoke about sort of Hello Again a little bit earlier on today, and just wanted to see how are you kind of finding, now we brought it into Spectre, how are you kind of finding sort of having it all under one roof? Is it much easier to kind of manage, etc.? And just out of curiosity, have you had quite a few sort of things come back yet from it?
So people generally like the reports. The annual reports was a really nice touch. Obviously, I think reporting in property has come on quite a lot since Hello Again first came out as a concept. So when you had that sort of analytical dashboard that came with your letter or with Hello Again, that was quite unique at the time. And obviously reporting has developed, and with things like insights, it's certainly developed even further. So I think there was some really good traction at the time, where people were quite surprised. The ongoing sort of management of it has become far easier now, with it all being under the one system. The data uploads for us are now automatic, and are going through from our repeat software, so that works really nicely, and is taking a job away from us to keep that sort of data up to speed. I was a bit disappointed with the return rates of clients, but it's anybody I've spoken to, it shocked them how that changes, and just proves that we need to be better at keeping in touch with people and doing things other than maybe just a letter. But that's just honest feedback from our performance. But it's certainly an eye opener when you see those stats.
Yeah, definitely, and it's one of those. I think on average across the industry, return clients is around 13%, if that.
Yeah.
So which is generally quite low, and that's what Anniversary is really there to help sort of counteract that. Really, keep your brand in front of them, add some value to that sort of after sales sort of service, really. And then just to kind of wrap up, really, because I know that be like nearly 4 years now. I don't know if you talk a little bit about what your results have actually been like using Spectre at that time. I know obviously you had 2 years just your office, and then rolling it across the associates. Just be interesting.
Yeah, so we obviously cover a much larger patch than we did for the first 2 years of time with you, but over the period we've had 103 successes, which are essentially anything that's come onto the market after receiving a piece of content from us through the Spectre system. We had 8 come through last month, which is a really decent month. But yeah, potential V values of those 103 is 1.6 million quid. So there's quite a chunk of fees available there for the properties that we're bringing to market. And you've shared this with me, but over that period, in 4 years, we spent about 50 grand on the system. So that is system and postage over that period, but with a potential fee return of over 1.5 million quid. It's a pretty good investment.
Yeah, so it's really good to hear. That it really is. It's music to our ears, really. Is there anything that you maybe want to sort of run through or sort of add from what we've kind of gone through, or?
No, I probably just implore everybody to look again at the content of those letters. Make sure you're using insights. If you're using the system and it's available to you, make sure you're using it, because I do think it is nice to be able to bring customers online as well as having them with that offline, but also giving them the ability to see more information rather than just that one image. I think people are inherently nosy, so I think that gives people the ability to look a bit further and see the rest of the pictures and the floor plan and stuff of that neighbour's property that they might not have known was even on the market. So yeah, review the letters, make sure that A4 letter is as good and as punchy as it can be, and includes things a bit like testimonials and maybe other services that you can potentially offer, and get those 2020s out, because we've found massive success for those. We really have.
Yeah, and going back to what we mentioned there with the insights, it's just kind of you providing that extra value to the people in the area that you cover. Really, if you can provide them data on any sort of property that they're potentially interested in, etc., or even, as you say, just being nosy and not providing any friction there for them to get that data, it's it just kind of starts that bit of goodwill, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Get that journey started.
I'm not too sure if we've had many questions come through. But yeah, happy to rattle through and see if we can run through any there, or please feel free to chuck some in the chat.
One for you there about their teams, I think.
Ooh, it's quite a good one for you, Lee. Of those potential fees, what was your sale through rate? Do you know?
Of my what? Sorry.
Your sale through rate.
Sales through rate.
I imagine that's your success rate on your
Yeah,
instructions?
success rate is probably about 50% in
Nice.
reality. Yeah, like it to be more, but it's probably more like 50% of sell-through rate.
Yeah, that's.
That's what we do.
I'll take that as a, as a success rate there, bud.
Yeah, no, it's an honest answer. We'd all like to say we sell everything that we list, but the reality is we don't. Yes, it's probably around 50 is a fair marker. Has been for a number of years.
Yeah, real. Well, unless there's anything else. Oh, someone wants to know. Actually, Alistair in the chat wants to know: do you have a dedicated person in house who just looks after Spectre, or is it more spread across the team? Or
Yeah, so the individual associates manage their own Spectre areas. I find that's a really good way of them keeping a track on the market as well, because obviously whether you are sending the new instruction letters or not, you are seeing what's coming to market as full addresses rather than pictures. So it allows you to keep abreast of what's going on in the market. So it's quite good market intelligence for them to do it. And obviously they're in the best positions to be able to add customers' names if they know them, if they recognize them. What we do in head office here, yes, one person looks after it and literally just cross checks against every address, whether they're sitting in our system as an applicant and we haven't seen them, we absolutely add that name if we can, because a name on a letter is a far higher response rate. Well, yeah, it's much nicer to open rather than the dear homeowner. So yeah, adding those names are important. So each territory is looked after by a single person.
yeah, going back to that, adding the names there, I think one of my colleagues did a little bit of sort of a deep dive into the data, and it's about a 1 in 3, a 3 times higher likelihood to receive a response if they've got the name on there. So
it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I see a question there about benefits of doing 2020s on lettings properties. Now, we've never done that. We've not done it. I don't know if anybody else has to find success there, but no, it's not something that we've done on the lettings side. We have looked at the lettings side with yourself, Spectre, but we haven't really done much with it. It has been just a sales tool for us for that period.
Yeah. With Spectre lettings, there are a couple of benefits that you have on that sort of side. Personally, I don't know if I should be saying this, I personally wouldn't do your traditional let people know on the road that you've let a house, if that makes sense. But that sort of additional step where you can target all the tenanted and livestock nearby, get that message out there to people, I think can still be quite beneficial. But a lot of it, I think it just kind of comes down to your content, really. Again, what we said, making sure it's up to date, punchy, getting your kind of get what you want to say across quite quickly, really. Got one here just in regards to postcards versus letters. Personally, this is going to sound very, very on the fence, but I think a mixture of the two is the best way to go. Couple of reasons, postcards, you can get your branding out. They don't have to open anything. Be nice and colourful and punchy. But then with a letter, you can also say a bit more in it, really. So I think a mixture of the two, you've got to cover all bases there, personally. I don't know about you, Lee.
Yeah, I think a mixture of the two and the right, going back to the right letters. Yeah, the right letters at the right time are important. But I love the postcards, like you say. It doesn't take much effort. You can see it. It's visual. Yeah, it's immediately engaging. It does have some text on the back, but not a lot. And so I think it's a great way to make a quick touch point with someone.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think the last one, someone just wants to know where you can find the vault for historic withdrawals. So that's just a little section in your letter settings. It's just underneath, keep it slightly separate just because it's a slightly different type of trigger. But then for generating them, it's just the case of clicking on generate letters, gets pulled through the same as your normal letters, and then send them, really. It's not an extra job for you guys, is it?
Yeah, I think it's worth switching on. Again, have a quick look at the content as to what's actually going out. Make sure it sounds right and it works. Think about those sort of timelines and the journeys. Somebody might be getting a letter 2 years after they actually had their house on the market. So make sure that the letter kind of works for that type of that sort of contact. And I know they've put in the chat now a link to the insights. Have a little look. I don't know, can someone do a test on their own house, Callum, on there? But do it. That will give you all the information. I know some people have asked about whether it's got broadband speed and stuff like that in it, and what the report includes. But I know it's all there. So yeah, run a test on your own house to see what somebody might be able to produce.
Yeah, definitely. And then yeah, one last quick one for Caroline. How many letters touch points does it take before someone responds? On average, we did a bit of research, and it's between 4 or 5 letters usually when someone responds. But then I think at the same time, a lot of it depends on your content, when that first letter goes out. So for example, as we mentioned before, Lee's first instruction came from a 4-through letter, and then a month later it was instructed. So they only received that single letter from Spectre. But I think on average, it's about 4 or 5. That sort of rings from you?
I'd echo that. Yeah, I think so. I'd echo that. Yeah, we're trying to reduce that by hitting those pain point letters rather than doing the 6, 8, 10, 12 letters. But yeah, I think that probably is about fair in terms of touch points.
Yeah.
So those touch points can be physical and digital as well, So if you're bringing people online to the website and having a little look around, then yeah, that's considered a touch point as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's us. But Lee, as always, thanks for catching up. Really appreciate it.
No worries. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'll catch up with you again soon.
Brilliant.
Thanks for coming, guys. See you all later.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye.